At first it was a drop, small, silent, barely visible on the face of a white statue placed on an altar. No one said anything, but a few minutes later the drop turned into a trickle of water, or perhaps oil, or perhaps tears. The people around began to look at each other, searching for a logical explanation. But there was no moisture in the air, no water leaks, no hidden trick. The statue was crying. And it wasn't the first time something like this had happened. In recent years, a phenomenon that defies human logic has multiplied in different parts of the world. Images of the Virgin Mary weeping. Some do so with tears of water, others with perfumed oil, and the most striking, with tears of blood. Videos capturing these moments have gone viral, racking up millions of views and sparking debate among both believers and skeptics. What is happening? Why are these images weeping? And what does this crying mean? This is not a new phenomenon. Already in the 20th century, similar events occurred in places like Syracuse, Italy, where a small plaster image wept for days in front of witnesses, doctors, and civil authorities. Science, after investigation, could not offer a satisfactory explanation. It simply said, "We don't know why it cries." The same thing has happened in Argentina, Mexico, the Philippines, the United States, Ireland, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Colombia. The list grows every year, always with one common denominator. The Virgin appears weeping in places where faith is weakened, where there is suffering, where people have stopped listening to God. The inevitable question is, why would the Virgin Mary weep? What motivates the Mother of God, who reigns gloriously in heaven, to appear on earth with her face covered in tears? The answer cannot be trivial, because if heaven manifests itself in this way, it must mean something important. Tears in all cultures are a symbol of profound pain, of loss, of compassion. And if Mary weeps, she doesn't weep for herself. She weeps for us, for our sins, for our indifference, for the children lost in the darkness. She weeps for the world that has forgotten its creator. There are those who say it's all a fraud, a manipulation to gain attention or money. But many of the documented cases have occurred in humble environments, without prior publicity, with no benefit to the witnesses. And the people who have witnessed these miracles gain nothing by sharing their experience. On the contrary, they are often attacked, ridiculed, and dismissed, but they still speak out, because what they saw changed their lives, because something stirred within them when they saw the face of the Virgin Mary soaked in tears. In biblical times, God used signs to speak to his people: fire, earthquakes, stars, dreams. Today, amidst technology, noise, and disbelief, Mary seems to use tears as a last resort to get our attention. She doesn't come with threats or condemnation. She comes weeping, and that in itself is stronger than 1,000 words. What does a mother do when her child is heading straight for the abyss and doesn't listen? She cries. What does a mother do when she sees her children destroying each other, turning away from the light, hating love? She cries. And in those tears, sadness and hope mingle, because every tear is also a plea. Son, come back, there's still time. The mystery of weeping images should not be reduced to mere emotion. It is a mystery that challenges us. It forces us to look within, to ask ourselves, do I give the Virgin reason to weep? Am I part of her pain or her consolation? Am I living as if nothing matters, or do I realize that heaven is trying to tell us something urgent? Those who have seen the Virgin weep are never the same afterward. Many have returned to the faith, confessed their sins, and abandoned dark paths, because those tears are not water. They are a form of grace. They are the face of a mother who does not give up, even when her children are lost. They are perhaps the last warning before punishment, a heavenly whisper that tells us this cannot continue like this. And the most disturbing thing is that the cases are increasing. They are not isolated incidents. They are increasing in frequency. as if the tears were the prelude to something more, as if heaven were preparing the soul of the world for a great awakening. And while some look the other way, the images continue to weep in silence, in churches, in homes, in forgotten chapels. Mary continues to weep, and the world, for the most part, continues to sleep. And will you ignore it too? Write in the comments, "Mother, open my eyes to your tears," if you too feel that this world needs to wake up before it's too late. Share this message with 3 people who need to open their hearts before Mary's cry becomes a cry of pain, because this is just the beginning. In the next episode, we'll hear from those who witnessed those inexplicable cries. Some still believe that the images of tears are the product of elaborate frauds, optical illusions, or simple fanaticism. But everything changes when you hear directly from the witnesses, not from the media, not from distant analyses, but from those who were there, those who saw the tears welling from the eyes of a motionless statue with no one touching anything, those who felt the air of the place change. That time stood still. That something supernatural enveloped them. The testimonies are repeated in different languages and countries. Ordinary people, unrelated to each other, report the same thing: an overwhelming feeling of peace, a scent that doesn't come from anywhere physical, a silence that pierces them, and then tears. First as a gleam in the image's eyes, then as a single tear, and then a gentle waterfall down the marble, plaster, or resin cheeks. An image that shouldn't move, but cries, in front of everyone. Maria Dolores, a simple woman from Puebla, Mexico, tells of a visit to a small rural chapel where an image of the Virgin Mary was said to have wept. She went out of curiosity. She entered without faith, almost mockingly. But as she stood before the image, something inside her broke. The Virgin Mary wasn't crying at that moment, but she was, as if the tears that had previously flowed from Mary's eyes were now pouring from hers. Without understanding why, she fell to her knees and, without saying a word, knew she had to change her life. Today, she is a missionary. In Italy, a priest accidentally filmed the moment a statue of the Virgin Mary shed tears of blood. The video was widely circulated and analyzed by experts. The image was examined. There were no tubes, no hidden mechanisms, no explanation. The priest, once skeptical, completely changed his position. Today he asserts with conviction that he witnessed a warning from heaven, and not just because of what he saw, but because of what he felt. "It was as if Mary were crying for me," he said between sobs in an interview. In the Philippines, a family was preparing to move when they noticed their small statue of the Virgin Mary placed on a shelf, beginning to perspire. As they got closer, they noticed they were tears. They called the local priest, who arrived with other parishioners. They all saw the same thing, but the most striking thing was what happened next. The family's youngest son, diagnosed with a degenerative disease, began to regain motor function. The doctor couldn't explain it. Neither could they. But they knew the Virgin Mary had wept for them. In each testimony, the pattern is similar. There is no spectacle. There is no preparation. It happens suddenly, in ordinary places, with ordinary people. But the impact is extraordinary. Those who see the Virgin weep cannot continue living the same way. Some return to the faith. Others break with sins they have borne for years. Others simply break. Because what they witness is not just a visual miracle, it is an inner miracle. And the Virgin's tears are not just falling drops. They are silent messages that penetrate the soul. Each tear seems to carry an invisible content, a burden of love and suffering that can only be understood in the depths of the heart. It's as if Mary was speaking without words, as if she was saying, "I see you, I love you, but what you do hurts me. Come back, son." Many witnesses share a common feeling, a peace they had never experienced before, a tenderness that envelops them, a compassion that moves them to tears, because when a mother cries, a child with a heart cannot remain cold. And in those chapels, homes, shrines, or churches where the Virgin has wept, there is something that remains. Even when the tears cease, her presence remains, like a sacred imprint in the history of the place. Even skeptics, faced with direct evidence, remain silent. Some, touched by the experience, are converted. Others withdraw, not knowing how to explain what they have seen. Because miracles are not understood with reason, they are received with the soul. And if there is anything these tears provoke, it is a wound of love. A wound that does not wound, but heals. That does not accuse, but calls. The testimonies will continue to appear, and they will become more and more, because heaven has not stopped speaking. Only now it does so through tears, because perhaps we no longer listen with words, because perhaps only tears can break the indifference of a hardened generation, because there is no more time, and the mother does not want any of her children to be lost. If Mary's tears touched ordinary people all over the world, what is your heart waiting for to open? Write in the comments, "I want to console the Virgin," if you feel the world needs to respond now to this silent call from heaven. Share this testimony with someone who needs to feel God's tenderness through his mother again. And if you think this is shocking, wait until you learn the prophetic background of these tears throughout history. Many think the tears of the Virgin are a modern phenomenon, linked to recent times, viral and recorded on cell phones. But that's not the case. Mary's tears are not new. They have been around for centuries, appearing at key moments in history, almost always before major crises, wars, moral collapses, or punishments. They are part of a prophetic line that spans the ages. And whoever dares to look with an open soul discovers that there is a pattern, a repeated warning, a plea that resonates generation after generation. One of the most striking apparitions in recent history is La Salette, which occurred in 1846 in a small village in the French Alps. There, the Virgin Mary appeared to two shepherd children, Maximine and Melanie. She sat with her head in her hands, weeping. Her tears fell steadily as she spoke of the abandonment of the faith, the sins of the people, the desecration of Sunday, and the priests who had lost their fervor. She didn't scream. She didn't threaten. She wept. And those tears accompanied a painful prophecy. Famines, wars, and disasters would come, and they came true. In Syracuse, Italy, in 1953, a simple plaster statuette in the home of a newlywed couple began shedding human tears. The phenomenon continued for several days and was witnessed by dozens of people, including scientists, doctors, and church authorities. Samples were collected and the liquid analyzed. It was identical to that of a human tear. The phenomenon could not be explained. The local bishop, after rigorous investigation, recognized it as a supernatural sign. But the most important thing was not the material miracle, but what it produced. Conversions, mass confessions, a return to the faith. As if the tears had washed the dust from many hearts. Another shocking case is that of Akita, Japan, in 1973. There, Sister Agnes Sasagawa, a deaf nun, began receiving messages from the Virgin Mary next to a wooden statue. That image wept more than 100 times, before witnesses on different dates, and shed not only tears, but also sweat and blood. The messages received were clear and painful. A punishment worse than the flood is coming. Fire will fall from heaven, and many souls will be lost if they do not convert. A great division within the church was also prophesied. All of this was approved by the local bishop as being of supernatural origin, and again, heaven spoke, weeping. In Betania, Venezuela, an image of the Virgin Mary began exuding an oily substance with the scent of roses, and several people reported seeing it weep. In Argentina, in the city of Salta, the image known as the Immaculate Mother of the Divine Eucharistic Heart of Jesus has been photographed and filmed with tears visible on its face. And in Trevignano Romano, Italy, a small image belonging to a woman named Gisella has been the subject of tears of blood that defy human explanation. These events, spread across different periods and continents, seem unconnected, but they are not. Because they all arise when humanity distances itself from God, when moral confusion grows, when violence replaces love, when faith grows cold. Mary's tears appear as a response, as a mirror, as a mother's plea who cannot force conversion, but can implore it with pain. The most surprising thing is that many of these apparitions have been accompanied by prophecies that have been fulfilled or are in the process of being fulfilled. La Salette spoke of agricultural crises, Akita of wars and internal apostasy, Syracuse of spiritual decline, and today in 2025 we see all of this before our eyes. It's as if the tears had been the silent alarm that no one wanted to heed, and now the fruits of rejection are ripening, but not everything is dark. In each of these cases, there were also conversions and miracles, because the Virgin's tears are not just pain, they are medicine, they are the last whisper before the cry. They are the bridge between the justice to come and the mercy that still awaits. Whoever contemplates them with faith is transformed. Whoever ignores them risks remaining blind when the light shines brightly. Heaven clearly hasn't stopped speaking. It's just changed its form, and when the words are no longer heard, God allows his mother to weep. Because no one can say they don't understand a tear. No one can accuse Mary of not having warned. No one can say, I didn't know. And if these events of the past were already so powerful, what does it mean that they are multiplying in so many places at the same time today? What is Mary trying to tell us with this new cycle of tears? How close are we to the fulfillment of greater warnings? Write in the comments, Virgin Mary, give me eyes to see, if you too believe these tears are a voice from heaven that we should heed. Share this story with those who believe this is all over, because a mother's pain isn't filed away. It's addressed. And if the past was already clear, prepare for what's to come. A mother's tears are not random. Every drop that runs down her face is born from an inner wound. And if that mother is the Virgin Mary, Queen of Heaven, immaculate and glorified, her tears cannot be trivial. They are not divine theater. They are not a symbolic device. They are real. She cries for us, not for heaven, not for her glory. She cries because her children have chosen paths that lead to perdition. She cries for what she sees from her eternal gaze, which we still cannot understand. Mary is not limited by time. She sees the past, the present, and the future with the clarity that only God can grant her. And in that vision, she painfully contemplates how humanity is hurtling toward an abyss that could have been avoided. She sees the wars to come, the broken families, the children deformed by ideologies, the empty souls who no longer know what grace is, the desecrated bodies, the empty temples, the silent apostasy that advances without resistance. And all of this, like a mother watching her child self-destruct, makes her weep. The Marian messages in different apparitions coincide. The Virgin does not weep for herself, but for us. She weeps because hearts have hardened, because prayer has been replaced by distractions, because the Mass has been relativized, because the sacraments have been despised, because sin has become a way of life, because hell, although denied by many, continues to swallow souls every day. Mary sees what we don't want to see, not because we can't, but because we refuse. We've grown accustomed to evil. We've normalized it. We call progress what we once called sin. And we do it with applause, with laws, with public celebrations. But she, who is a mother, cannot applaud the self-destruction of her children. That's why she weeps. Because every soul that is lost is one more wound in her immaculate heart. Some ask, why would someone in heaven weep? Because true love doesn't disappear with glory. On the contrary, it intensifies. Mary, as the mother of all men, does not ignore the pain of the world. She feels every blasphemy like a dagger, every abortion like a cry, every heresy like a betrayal, every indifferent soul like an absence. And all of this she gathers in her heart. That is why her tears never cease. She also sees the division of the church, the lukewarmness of many pastors, the doctrinal confusion that leads thousands astray. She sees how the enemy has managed to infiltrate not only the world, but the very heart of the sacred. She sees the desecrated altars, the empty homilies, the communions without conscience, and she weeps, not out of despair because she knows the final triumph is hers, but out of compassion, because the pain she sees was unnecessary. It could have been avoided. Our Lady has spoken with clear words in several apparitions. At La Salette, she said that Rome would lose the faith. At Akita, that terrible punishments would come if humanity did not convert. At Fatima, that the errors of the world would be spread by a godless nation. At Medjugorje, that the secrets would soon be revealed. And in all these words, her tone has been one of warning and hope. But the time of warning is ending. And when words are not enough, Mary weeps. There is no greater silent cry than that of a mother crying before her son who doesn't listen. Her tears don't scream, but pierce the soul. They don't demand, but confront. They don't force, but invite. They are a call that enters not through the ears, but through the heart. A whisper that says, come back before it's too late. Wake up before the veil falls. Love before judgment finds you cold. The deepest aspect of this mystery is that Mary continues to hope. Despite indifference, despite rejection, despite contempt, like a mother who never tires, like a tireless intercessor, because her desire is not to punish, but to save, not to accuse, but to redeem. But she also knows that time is not infinite, that justice will come, that God cannot be mocked forever. And for this reason, her tears become more frequent, more visible, more urgent. Many feel that something great is about to happen. They don't say this out of fear, but out of spiritual intuition. From what they perceive in prayer, from what they read in the signs of the times, from what they recognize in the changing tone of Marian messages. And in the midst of this climate of alert, Mary's tears appear as the final thermometer, like the sign that tells us what she sees is real, and what will come will depend on how we respond now. Do you think the Virgin would cry for no reason? Do you think she would do it just to impress or move? No, Mary doesn't need that. Her crying is an urgent message, a voiceless word that resonates more than any speech. And if we don't listen to it, we will be like those who ignored Noah, like those who mocked Lot, like those who didn't recognize the time of his visitation. But there's still time. As long as there are tears, there's hope. Because the day the Virgin stops crying, it won't be because everything is fine, but because what was meant to come has already begun. Are you willing to comfort your mother before it's too late? Write in the comments, Mary, open my eyes before it's too late, if you too feel that her pain is a direct call to your soul. Share this message with those who still don't understand that every tear of Mary's life is a countdown. And if these tears are accompanied by messages, what do those words from heaven that so many have ignored really say? Where Mary weeps, she does not do so in silence. Although her tears speak for themselves, they are often accompanied by direct messages, words delivered to visionaries, to humble children, to prayerful souls, words that do not seek to entertain, but to awaken, warnings that are born not from threat, but from love. And yet the most painful thing is not the content of these messages, but the fact that the world has systematically ignored them. From the 19th century until today, in every apparition in which Our Lady shed tears, there was also a heavenly message, an urgent call to conversion, to prayer, to fasting, to reparation, to return to God. But time and again, those words were scorned, rejected by disbelief, minimized by convenience, buried beneath the noise of the world. At La Salette, Mary wept as she warned that if humanity did not convert, unprecedented suffering would come. She spoke of a spiritual famine, of a time when priests would lose their sense of mission, and of a church that would be persecuted from within. And what did the world do? It ignored her. Only many years later, when wars and conflicts came, did some begin to look back and say, perhaps it was true. In Akita, Japan, tears were only part of an even more powerful message. Our Lady spoke of a future where the work of the devil will infiltrate even the church, where we will see bishops pitted against bishops, cardinals against cardinals, and altars attacked from within. She said that if humanity did not repent, a punishment worse than the flood would come, and many would lose their lives in seconds. She also called for prayer of the Rosary, Eucharistic reparation, and fidelity to the Pope. And what has the world done? What has the Church done? In many cases, it has remained mute, deaf, distracted. In Medjugorje, where the messages continue to this day, Mary has asked for the same thing for over 40 years. Conversion, fasting on Wednesdays and Fridays, monthly confession, frequent communion, and daily prayer of the Rosary. She has said that God allows her to be with us for so long because this is a special time of grace, but that it will not last forever. The visionaries have warned that the secrets to be revealed will change the world, and that those who are not spiritually prepared will suffer the most, and yet most live as if nothing were happening. At Fatima, although there were no visible tears, the messages were a cry. Hell exists, Mary said, and many souls go there because there is no one to pray or sacrifice for them. She announced the Second World War, the rise of communism, the persecution of the Church. She promised the triumph of her Immaculate Heart, but only after much suffering. And what did humanity do? It carried on as if heaven hadn't spoken. In all these places, tears and messages intertwine like two tongues of the same fire. The fire of love of a mother who sees her children in danger and cannot remain still. But her words, like tears, do not impose themselves. They offer themselves. And that changes everything. Because those who do not listen, those who refuse, those who close their hearts, will also be those who will not understand when the secrets begin to reveal themselves one by one. Mary's messages were not given to form ecclesiastical archives or to feed curiosity. They were given to save us. They are precise instructions for spiritually surviving what is coming. And the Virgin's greatest pain is not only seeing her children suffer, but that they suffer for not having listened in time, for having scorned opportunities, for having lived as if everything were a fable. Today, when the world is experiencing one of its greatest moral crises, when war looms at the doors of nations, when faith seems to be growing cold even in the churches, the messages take on renewed force. The tears continue, but they are no longer the beginning. They are the echo of ignored warnings. They are the warning that the clock is approaching the end of mercy. Many expect miracles, heavenly signs, grand manifestations, but Mary has been clear. What matters is an open heart, a transformed life, a vigilant soul, because when events arrive, there will be no time to prepare. All that remains is to live what has been sown. So we still have time, but it's a short time, a fragile time, a time that only makes sense if it's answered, because heaven has already spoken. And now the question is, who will listen? Write in the comments, "Mother, I no longer want to ignore your calls." If you recognize that many of her messages have gone unheeded, and today you decide to take her voice seriously, share this message with those who are still living as if nothing had happened. May Mary's words not fall on deaf ears again. And if these messages are fulfilled amidst visible signs, what is heaven really telling us in this specific year? Where Mary weeps, she does not do so in silence. Although her tears speak for themselves, they are often accompanied by direct messages. Words delivered to visionaries, to humble children, to prayerful souls. Words that do not seek to entertain, but to awaken. Warnings that are born not from threat, but from love. And yet the most painful thing is not the content of these messages, but the fact that the world has systematically ignored them. From the 19th century until today, in every apparition in which Our Lady shed tears, there was also a heavenly message, an urgent call to conversion, to prayer, to fasting, to reparation, to return to God. But time and again those words were scorned, rejected by disbelief, minimized by convenience, buried beneath the noise of the world. At La Salette, Mary wept as she warned that if humanity did not convert, unprecedented suffering would come. She spoke of a spiritual famine, of a time when priests would lose their sense of mission, and of a church that would be persecuted from within. And what did the world do? It ignored her. Only many years later, when wars and conflicts came, did some begin to look back and say, perhaps it was true. In Akita, Japan, tears were only part of an even more powerful message. Our Lady spoke of a future where the work of the devil will infiltrate even the church, where we will see bishops pitted against bishops, cardinals against cardinals, and altars attacked from within. She said that if humanity did not repent, a punishment worse than the flood would come, and many would lose their lives in seconds. She also called for prayer of the Rosary, Eucharistic reparation, and fidelity to the Pope. And what has the world done? What has the Church done? In many cases, it has remained mute, deaf, distracted. In Medjugorje, where the messages continue to this day, Mary has asked for the same thing for over 40 years. Conversion, fasting on Wednesdays and Fridays, monthly confession, frequent communion, and daily prayer of the Rosary. She has said that God allows her to be with us for so long because this is a special time of grace, but that it will not last forever. The visionaries have warned that the secrets to be revealed will change the world, and that those who are not spiritually prepared will suffer the most, and yet most live as if nothing were happening. At Fatima, although there were no visible tears, the messages were a cry. Hell exists, Mary said, and many souls go there because there is no one to pray or sacrifice for them. She announced the Second World War, the rise of communism, the persecution of the Church. She promised the triumph of her Immaculate Heart, but only after much suffering. And what did humanity do? It carried on as if heaven hadn't spoken. In all these places, tears and messages intertwine like two tongues of the same fire. The fire of love of a mother who sees her children in danger and cannot remain still. But her words, like tears, do not impose themselves. They offer themselves. And that changes everything. Because those who do not listen, those who refuse, those who close their hearts, will also be those who will not understand when the secrets begin to reveal themselves one by one. Mary's messages were not given to form ecclesiastical archives or to feed curiosity. They were given to save us. They are precise instructions for spiritually surviving what is coming. And the Virgin's greatest pain is not only seeing her children suffer, but that they suffer for not having listened in time, for having scorned opportunities, for having lived as if everything were a fable. Today, when the world is experiencing one of its greatest moral crises, when war looms at the doors of nations, when faith seems to be growing cold even in the churches, the messages take on renewed force. The tears continue, but they are no longer the beginning. They are the echo of ignored warnings. They are the warning that the clock is approaching the end of mercy. Many expect miracles, heavenly signs, grand manifestations, but Mary has been clear. What matters is an open heart, a transformed life, a vigilant soul, because when events arrive, there will be no time to prepare. All that remains is to live what has been sown. So we still have time, but it's a short time, a fragile time, a time that only makes sense if it's answered, because heaven has already spoken. And now the question is, who will listen? Write in the comments, "Mother, I no longer want to ignore your calls." If you recognize that many of her messages have gone unheeded, and today you decide to take her voice seriously, share this message with those who are still living as if nothing had happened. May Mary's words not fall on deaf ears again. And if these messages are fulfilled amid visible signs, what is heaven really telling us in this specific year? Each generation believes its time is unique, but not all face the same signs. Some live in relative calm, others are shaken by the pain of wars, pandemics, revolutions, but few, like 2025, bring together so many converging signs: physical, spiritual, moral, heavenly. Signs that to the common eye appear to be disconnected events, but to the watchful soul are revealed as a single warning. A voice from heaven that speaks without the need for words. And one of those voices, the quietest but most persistent, is that of Mary, weeping. What's so special about this year? Why do so many feel like we've crossed an invisible threshold? First, astronomical events. 2025 is marked by solar and lunar eclipses on symbolic dates, visible in specific regions that have been the scene of spiritual events. Planetary alignments, unusual auroras, and an intensification of cosmic phenomena have provoked wonder, but also a sense of unease. In the Bible, the darkened sun and the blood moon are signs of divine intervention. Mary, in multiple messages, has said that heaven will speak before acting. Secondly, the earth itself seems to be reacting. Earthquakes in non-seismic zones, uncontrollable fires, record temperatures, flash floods. The natural world behaves like a sick body, as if we groan, as St. Paul says, awaiting a redemption that never comes. Our Lady has mentioned in several apparitions that nature will rebel against human sin, that inner disorder will provoke outer disorder. And that is what we are seeing. On the human level, violence has become institutionalized. Wars are no longer the exception, they are the norm. Nuclear threats have returned to public discourse, and while governments discuss treaties, children die, families flee, and cities crumble. In her message at Fatima, Mary warned that if the world did not convert, there would be an even worse war. Today, military analysts say we are closer to a major conflagration than at any time since World War II. But the most serious thing isn't the external war, it's the internal war. Moral confusion has become global politics. Ideologies that deny human nature are promoted as progress. What was once sin is now celebrated. What was virtue is now ridiculed. The Virgin Mary said with tears in her eyes that sin is no longer recognized as such. And when the soul stops seeing the difference between light and darkness, it is lost in an abyss of no return. Within the Church, division has deepened. Contradictory doctrines, despised sacraments, pastors who no longer speak of sin or judgment. The prophecy of Akita seems to be fulfilled before our eyes. Cardinals against cardinals, bishops against bishops. Mary has not ceased to plead for unity, but many hearts have hardened. The mystical body of Christ suffers a silent fracture, and while the world reels, many churches remain empty. And what does heaven do in the midst of this chaos? It cries. It cries through Mary. It cries in images, in messages, in apparitions. It cries because it sees that humanity doesn't want to change. Because every sign is ignored. Because every warning is ridiculed. Because every tear is received as a spectacle, not as a plea. And yet, Mary doesn't cease. She keeps appearing, she keeps asking, she keeps interceding. Because there is still time, there are still souls who can return, there are still hearts willing to console. But time is running out, and 2025 is not just another year, it is a crossroads, a fork in the road where each person must choose light or darkness, heaven or earth, truth or confusion. Many feel that this year marks the beginning of the fulfillment of the secrets revealed in Medjugorje. Others believe that the great warning prophesied in Garabandal is imminent. The truth is that the elements are there: moral crisis, celestial signs, global violence, growing apostasy. And in the midst of all this, Mary's tears flow more than ever, as if she knew what was coming, as if she could already see it. Those who pray feel this tension. It's not fear, it's discernment, a kind of silent alarm that resonates in the soul, something that says, prepare yourself, pray, cleanse your heart, because heaven won't wait much longer. We don't know the day or the hour, but we know how to read the times, and these times cry out to heaven for an answer, and the answer will come with love or with justice. Write in the comments, Lord, awaken my soul, if you feel that the signs of this year are not coincidental and that something great is about to arrive. Share this message with those who have not yet seen what the sky is already showing with tears. And if this year marks a point of no return, what does Mary tell us about the whole plan? Will everything that began in Fatima end in Medjugorje? This isn't a poetic phrase. It's not a forced interpretation. It's a certainty that resonates among attentive theologians, visionaries, and faithful. What began in Fatima will end in Medjugorje. Two small towns, geographically distant, yet mysteriously united by a heavenly mission. Fatima, Portugal. Medjugorje, Bosnia-Herzegovina. Two lands marked by the passage of the Mother of God. Two apparitions separated by more than half a century, yet deeply connected by the same prophetic fire. At Fatima in 1917, Our Lady appeared to three shepherd children, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta. In 6 encounters, she delivered messages that spoke of the need for conversion, the recitation of the Rosary, reparation to the Immaculate Heart, and the grave consequences if the world did not change. She announced a second world war, the spread of ideological errors, the suffering of the Church, and the martyrdom of the good. All this was confirmed by the miracle of the sun, witnessed by more than 70,000 people. But Fatima did not remain in the past. Its message transcends the 20th century. Many scholars have pointed out that the call to consecration, the promise of the triumph of the Immaculate Heart, and the mention of a conditional punishment have not yet been fully fulfilled. Fatima was the beginning of a plan of salvation and warning, but not its culmination. Then Medjugorje appeared in 1981. 6 young people began to experience daily apparitions of Our Lady. She presented herself as the Queen of Peace, and from then on, she delivered monthly messages that emphasized the same pillars: prayer, fasting, conversion, confession, and the Eucharist. But with one essential difference: she announced that there were secrets yet to be revealed, prophesied events that would change the course of history, and most shocking of all, she claimed that these were her last public apparitions on earth. Many refused to see the connection, but the Virgin herself has hinted at it. In various approved private apparitions, visionaries have heard that Fatima was only the beginning of the process, that Medjugorje is its continuation and conclusion, that there, what began as a prophetic seed will bear fruit, for good or for judgment. At Fatima, Mary spoke of hell. At Medjugorje, she invites us to heaven. At Fatima, she warned of punishment. At Medjugorje, she offers a time of grace. At Fatima, she asked for reparation. At Medjugorje, she implores conversion. It is the same maternal heart in different times, with different language, but with the same urgency. The connection between the two lies not only in their messages, but also in history. At Fatima, Russia was mentioned as an instrument of the spread of error. In Medjugorje, the apparition takes place in the context of the collapse of communism and in a region marked by ethnic wars, religious hatred, and spiritual destruction. There, amidst the chaos, Mary speaks again, as if returning to reap what she sowed, to seal what she began. Many believe that the secrets of Medjugorje are the fulfillment of what was revealed at Fatima, that the call to penance and conversion has reached its limit, that humanity has crossed invisible lines, that what was announced as a possibility is now imminent, not as an imposed punishment, but as a natural consequence of prolonged rebellion. And that's where the Virgin's tears take on new meaning. Because she doesn't weep only for what she sees today, she weeps for what she announced more than 100 years ago and still hasn't been heeded. She weeps because she knows the full plan, and she knows how close we are to the decisive moment. She weeps because she wanted to avoid it, because she begged, pleaded, warned, and many, too many, didn't listen. But in her pain, there is one constant: hope. Mary is not a messenger of fatalism. She is a bearer of salvation. Each of her tears carries within it an open door, a possibility of return, a final call before the floodgates of mercy close. And that call has not ceased. 2025, with all its signs, seems to be positioned right at the intersection of Fatima and Medjugorje, as if history were taking a turn, as if the time of silent warnings were about to become the time of fulfillment. And at that crossroads, Mary awaits us, with her immaculate heart open, with her messages still fresh, with her tears still falling. The triumph he promised at Fatima will not be political, economic, or spectacular. It will be spiritual. It will be in the hearts that respond, in the souls that are converted, in the homes that pray again, in the young people who embrace purity, in the priests who preach with fire. That will be his triumph. And you are invited to be a part of it. Write in the comments, "Mother, I want to be part of your triumph," if you believe this is the time to truly respond to her calling. Share this message with those who still think Fatima was the end, because what began there isn't over yet. And if this entire plan hinges on our response, what exactly is expected of us? How can we live in this time without falling into despair? Topic 8. The role of believers. Pray, fast, and prepare the heart. The Virgin Mary's tears are not heavenly poetry or simple supernatural emotion. They are an urgent call, a silent warning, a maternal plea. But above all, they are a task. Because Mary does not come only to warn, she comes to summon, to form, to prepare an invisible army of souls willing to sustain the world in the midst of the approaching spiritual collapse. And that army is not formed on social media, nor in debates, nor in protests. It is formed in the silence of the heart, in the fidelity of the small, in the perseverance of the hidden. It is formed by praying, fasting, purifying. It is formed from within. From the first day she began appearing in Medjugorje, Our Lady was clear: if we don't change our hearts, everything else will be useless. It's not enough to know the secrets. It's not enough to recognize the signs. It's not enough to be moved by her tears. What she expects is a real response, not emotional, not temporal, but profound. And that's why she left us a plan, a concrete path that doesn't depend on theologians or mystics, but on any willing soul. The plan of the 5 spiritual stones: prayer, fasting, Eucharist, confession, and reading of the Word. Prayer, especially the Rosary, is the most powerful weapon Mary gives us. It is not just another devotion. It is a shield, a sword, a net that sustains the world. Each Hail Mary recited with faith has the power to disarm the enemy. In a world where everything accelerates, where distraction is constant, where the soul is scattered, the Rosary focuses, organizes, and uplifts. It is a school of humility, a source of light, a chain of love. Fasting, especially on Wednesdays and Fridays with bread and water, is the silent renunciation that opens space for the divine. It's not a diet, it's an offering, a way of saying, "My body no longer rules my soul." In times where comfort reigns, where pleasure is the new God, fasting is a prophetic act. It is declaring that there is something more important than the stomach, than the flesh, than routine. It is emptying oneself in order to be filled. Monthly confession lived with sincerity is the medicine that cleanses the soul of that which prevents it from receiving grace. Mary insisted, without confession, there is no true conversion. Because it is not enough to feel remorse, we must name the sin. We must humble ourselves. We must allow Christ to wash it away with his blood. In a time when sin is no longer recognized, confession is an act of light. It is putting life in order. It is preparing to see the soul as God sees it. Frequent Eucharist, lived with reverence, is the center of spiritual life. Mary said that Jesus is truly present, and without him, we will not endure. Going to Mass merely out of habit is not enough. Communion without conscience is not enough. It is necessary to do so with faith, with purity, with a hunger for the eternal, because only those who are nourished by the body of Christ will be able to endure when the world trembles. And reading the Word, especially the Gospel, is the lamp that guides in the darkness. It's not about accumulating information, but about letting the Word read us, reveal us, transform us. Mary asked that it be read every day, even if only a sentence, because that seed, though small, will germinate at the right moment, and it will bear fruit in tribulation. This path is not for stained glass saints. It's for you, for me, for those of us who are not perfect but want to respond, for those of us who fall but rise again, for those of us who, seeing Mary's tears, are not content with feeling pity, but decide to console her with actions, because that is what she expects. Souls who live in reparation, in intercession, in sacrifice offered for others. In all her apparitions, Mary has asked for the same thing, to form prayer cenacles. Small groups, in homes, in parishes, in secret if necessary, where prayer is said, the word is read, and the faith is shared. Because in these groups, the Holy Spirit acts powerfully. Because in these groups, the new humanity that she is forming is born. It is the little ones who will sustain the world when the great ones fall. It is the humble who will illuminate when the powerful are extinguished. The believer of this time cannot be superficial. He cannot be lukewarm. He cannot be a spectator. He must choose. He must take sides, not necessarily publicly, but profoundly, because the battle is no longer future. It's present. It's invisible but real. And Mary isn't looking for admirers. She's looking for soldiers. She's looking for souls who say, "Here I am." And that preparation isn't just to withstand what's coming, but to help others withstand it. Because when secrets are revealed, when tears become facts, many will run aimlessly, many will break, many will search for answers. And you, if you've prepared your heart, will be a beacon, not with speeches, with your peace, with your faith, with your steadfastness. This is the time of hidden saints, of anonymous intercessors, of those who weep in silence for the sins of the world, of those who live on their knees so that others won't be lost. This is Mary's time, and you are called to be part of her army. Write in the comments, "Mother, teach me how to prepare myself." If today you decide to walk the path she has laid out, share this message with those who still believe there's no need to change. Because when heaven acts, only prepared hearts will endure. And if this is the way, what will come after the first secret? What impact will it have on the conscience of humanity? Many wonder what will happen when the first secret of Medjugorje is revealed. Some expect a natural phenomenon, others a visible sign in a specific place. But few understand that the most profound thing will not happen in heaven nor on earth, but in the soul. Because what will come after that first warning will not be just an external event. It will be an internal experience, a shock to the global conscience that will transform humanity like never before. Marian messages have warned that a time will come when every person, regardless of age, religion, or culture, will see their soul as God sees it. It will not be a mystical vision reserved for a select few. It will be a global illumination, simultaneous, undeniable. It will be the moment when divine light pierces all masks. Every human being will experience, in a single instant, the weight of their sins, the truth of their choices, the distance between their life and God's will. This event, prophesied under various names, is known by many as the warning. At Garabandal, there was talk of an event that would precede the great miracle, a spiritual impact that would change lives, shatter masks, provoke mass conversions, and also painful rejections. Because not everyone will endure the truth, not everyone will want to see it. Some will run to the confessional, others to denial. After the first secret, a visible sign that will shake external structures, will come this inner blow, deep as a wound, but also filled with light like a resurrection. It will be as if all of humanity were looking into the mirror of eternity. It will not be a definitive judgment, but rather a last chance to return before the true judgment arrives. Imagine for a moment what that means. Millions of people stuck in their routine, confronted with their sin, their indifference, their omissions, not as an abstract guilt, but as a living presence, like a voice saying, "This is what you could have been, and this is what you chose to be." There will be no escape. There will be no filters. It will be the soul naked before the truth. The effects of this shock will vary depending on the state of the soul. Those who have lived in grace will experience it as a fiery caress, as a gentle correction, as a certainty that they are on the right path. But for those who lived in sin, in lukewarmness, in conscious rebellion, it will be a painful shock. Some will repent, others will rebel even more. And therein lies the mystery. Freedom will remain intact. God will reveal the truth, but he will not force anyone to accept it. Like Jesus before Jerusalem, he will weep for those who refuse to be saved. Because mercy does not annul freedom. It only challenges it. After the great shaking of consciousness, the world will not be the same. There will be a visible division. Those who have awakened and those who have decided to remain asleep. Lights will be turned on in many souls, but the hearts that have hardened will also be visible. The decisions each person has made in the previous days will take on eternal value. That's why Mary never tires of warning, "Prepare your hearts now." Don't wait for the day of the warning to begin. Don't play with time, because when that moment arrives, there will be no room for dissimulation. Everything will be revealed, and what was hidden will come to light. This shock will be, at the same time, the greatest act of love and the last great test, because it will be an act of mercy that will allow us to return. But it will also be a silent separation between those who embrace the truth and those who reject it. Many will seek guidance, comfort, answers, and those who have heard Mary's tears before this moment will be beacons for them, not because of their own wisdom, but because they knew how to respond before. It's important to understand that this event isn't punishment, it's medicine. But like all true medicine, it can sting, it can hurt, because it will touch the most hidden areas of the soul, the wounds we denied, the guilt we hid, the unfulfilled promises. But it will also awaken the desire for redemption, for cleansing, for change. Many have had small experiences of personal enlightenment, on retreats, in moments of deep prayer, in sincere confessions. This event will be like that, but multiplied by 1,000 and experienced by all humanity at the same time. It will be impossible to ignore it, but it will be possible to deny it. That's why Mary weeps, because she knows that even in the face of fire from heaven, there are hearts that choose darkness. And yet, she doesn't give up. She keeps calling, she keeps preparing, because there is still time, and because she knows that many, after the warning, will return like the prodigal son. They will fall to their knees, they will weep, and God will raise them up, not because they deserve it, but out of love. Because every soul that is saved is one less tear in Mary's eyes. Write in the comments, "I want to see my soul through God's eyes," if you feel this shock will be an opportunity for profound conversion. Share this message with those who don't yet understand what is coming. Because when the soul awakens, it will need help walking toward the light. And if the final division comes after the great shock, what will happen to the world that has completely ignored all the signs? Will tears be able to stop the inevitable? After all that has been said, all that has been seen, all that Our Lady has shown through tears, signs, and warnings, only one truth remains. Heaven has not stopped speaking. We have stopped listening. And that is the root of all the spiritual drama of our time. God is not silent. Mary is not absent. What is missing are not messages, but answers. What is missing is not light, but hearts willing to open to it. In these 10 chapters, we have explored apparitions, testimonies, prophecies, natural signs, forgotten messages, and insistent calls. We have seen how Mary wept at La Salette, Syracuse, Akita, and Medjugorje. How she spoke of wars, apostasy, sin, judgment, and hope. How she tirelessly repeated that this is the time to return, to convert, to make amends. And yet, the vast majority of humanity continues as if nothing were happening. As if a mother's tears meant nothing. But heaven doesn't act without warning. It never has. Before the flood, he spoke to Noah. Before the destruction of Sodom, he spoke to Lot. Before sending his son, he sent prophets. Today, he sent Mary. And she has done what no human mother could bear. She has wept in front of her children as they reject, ignore, or ridicule her. She has wept not out of weakness, but out of love. Not out of despair, but out of mercy. Every tear of Mary is a word, a warning, a promise, a sign. And when an image of her weeps, it is heaven itself coming down to plead, not to impose, not to punish, but to beg. Because God respects our freedom to the end. But there will come a time when that freedom must be defined, and that time is drawing near, ever closer. The worst thing is not that punishment comes. The worst thing is that it finds us unrepentant. The worst thing is not the fire, the earth trembling, the nations collapsing. The worst thing is a dormant conscience, a lukewarm heart, a life without God. And that is what Mary wants to avoid. That is why she has not yet stopped crying, because she still awaits your answer. Many people ask, what can I do in the face of so much pain? How can I console Maria? How can I respond concretely? The answer isn't in grand actions, it's in inner decisions. In beginning to pray every day with your heart, in confessing the sins you've been hiding for years. In fasting with humility, in offering your time, your suffering, your silence, in reading the gospel, even if it's just one sentence a day, in lighting a candle in your home and praying with your family, in returning to the Eucharist with faith, in loving more, in judging less, in living as if every day were your last, because one day it will be. This is the time to decide, not with fear, but with love, not with anguish, but with clarity, because each one of us is a part of the plan. And Mary has called you, not to watch from afar, not to comment on what's happening. She has called you to be a living response, to console with your life, to be a bridge for others, to be a beacon when darkness deepens. There's no more time for indifference. There's no more room for spectators. The world is being shaken, and many still don't see it. But you know it. You've felt it. You've read every word, every message, every tear. And now you can't go on like this. Now you know you're being invited to a radical change, to a new life, to a path of grace, because the most terrible thing would be if, after learning about Mary's tears, you did nothing. If, after understanding what they mean, you continued to live as if all this were a pious tale. And it isn't. It's real. It's urgent. It's your eternal life that's at stake. And if you still doubt, if you still resist, if you still wait for confirmation, remember this: God doesn't need tears to act. But Mary offers them so that the time won't come when he acts without them. because when heaven falls silent, it will be too late. Because the day the Virgin stops weeping, it is because mercy will have been replaced by justice. But today, she still cries. Today, she still hopes. Today, she still opens her arms. Today, she still begs. And you're reading this because she's calling you. Not tomorrow, today. Write in the comments, "Mary, here I am," if you decide to respond with your life to this call. Share this message with 3 people you love, not as a strategy, but because perhaps through you, the Virgin Mary may touch another heart. And when you've done that, start over, pray, fast, confess, walk, live, because now you know tears speak and the sky still awaits your answer.